What is up, homies? Welcome back to another trailer reaction from Heroes Reforged. We are checking out the brand new trailer for Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu. It's coming out in May. I think a lot of people were like, where's the trailer? Where's the beef? Where is it? Super Bowl spot had a lot of controversial things, but whatever. I'm looking forward to this movie no matter what. So
that spot was very cute, but I think Star Wars Explained said it best. They had a great video about this. You should go check out that channel if you guys are watching this. And I'm sure you are already subscribed because they're the best, in my opinion, for Star Wars stuff. But they were like, take it a step further, and if you're gonna do a Budweiser parody ad, then do like another famous Super Bowl ad parody with the Mandalorian and Grogu. Then do a third one. Make it like a series, almost like a MacGruber or something. The other problem is that parody was for an ad that came out before any of the fan base was born. Like nobody recognized it. I'm so old. I immediately was like, "Oh, this is the Clydesdale. This is a Budweiser Clydesdale. This is very funny." But young people were like, "Is this from the movie? Is this in the movie?" And I'm like, "Oh, we're cooked. We have no pop culture education anymore. Like we have to. There's wrong audience." So
I know
maybe they shouldn't have gone that route. Maybe
I know. Or at the very least, at the end of that ad, been like, "Hey, there's a new trailer coming out next week or something." Whatever.
For sure.
Just to give someone, just to give the audience a little something. But also, if you have not followed along with us, we've watched all through seasons 2 and 3 of The Mandalorian, because season 1 came out after we started, or before we started this channel, so we don't have reactions for season 1. But we have reactions for seasons 2 and 3, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, literally every live action and animated most of the animated Star Wars shows that have come out since this channel's been around. So if you want to watch those, they're on YouTube. They're also on Patreon. And I'm excited to watch this movie. I'm excited to see whether or not this will be like the concluding chapter of Mando Din Djarin's story.
Just because I made that joke last night when we were watching that show, Adam, just because I made that joke, I was like, well, it's going to be real sad when Din Djarin.
You never know. You never know.
You never know. You never know. We'll see.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, go. Nice.
Hey, remember Star Wars?
Hey, touch the buttons.
Traviesa is back. Oh, the new Laser Crest.
I can use some information.
Whoa, for this price, I'll tell you whatever you want.
I'm looking for...
What the hell?
Martin Scorsese.
That's Martin Scorsese. What the hell?
More criminals.
Long live the Empire.
We'll take out every bad guy in your deck of cards.
Yo, let's go.
Damn.
So Coruscant. Nice.
It's about preventing another war.
Whoa.
Oh man, it's gonna be so fun. And in 3D finally. Hey, Pedro.
Whoa.
It will be his turn.
No, not the baby.
I'm going into harm's way. Check your armor.
No, hell yeah, the armor.
The kid will live centuries beyond me. I won't always be around to protect him.
Ooh.
Aww. And it's gonna make you cry with father-son stuff. You should be. Whoa.
Do we run?
Zeb.
I like this kid.
Yes.
All right, man.
Cool.
What are you waiting for?
Get your super stroller, baby. Oh my god.
Oh my god, dude. So fun. So pulpy.
Let's save the rest for after dinner.
Sassafras over here.
What an enjoyable puppet. What a goddamn enjoyable puppet. I love that.
I know.
That's so fun, dude. That's so fun. Wow.
I think season 3 came out, let's see, 2023. 2023, 2024. It's been a while now. It's been a while at this point. So
yeah, man.
I'm actually really looking forward to jumping back into this universe. I think I had mixed to positive feelings about season 3. Like there's definitely elements of it that I really enjoyed, and some of it I was like, okay, I could kind of take it or leave the story elements. Like it didn't suck me in, I think, as much as season 1 and season 2 did. Like season 1 and 2 really had me locked in. In season 3, I was like, okay, some of the stuff I don't know if I loved, but overall, I think I've really enjoyed Din Djarin and Grogu's story 100%. And a lot of the revelations. Yeah, I think it's been a very, 100%. Very fun watch, and it's, you know, it's different but the same because it will loosely tie into elements from the original trilogy, and then it'll have crossovers from characters. And I know that, you know, audiences have mixed feelings about that. I have mixed feelings about the way in which they make those things, but I think it is cool to see the crossover elements and to see like the original trilogy characters are kind of alive and well in this universe. So, and yeah, like you were saying, this looks like a just really fun, pulpy adventure story. And I don't know. I know Jon Favreau also has been getting a little bit of pushback recently because he talks about how like making these movies is like playing with toys, basically. And I think people kind of take that stuff a little too much to heart at times, and they take it for face value. And you have to understand that to a certain extent, when you are a fan who grew up with these stories and these sagas, whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, whatever, it is a little bit like playing in a sandbox. Like, you were a kid who grew up loving this stuff and you want to bring your passion and enthusiasm to it. So I understand that, you know, it does feel like that to a certain extent. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as we care about Din Djarin, we care about Grogu, we care about any supporting character who means anything to anyone. Those are characters like Zeb. And the story's enticing and fun, and it's got action, and it's got kind of all that stuff we've come to love from what Star Wars is and was when it started and how it's evolved. So I don't know. I still think it's going to be a fun theatrical experience, and in 3D and in IMAX. Like, dude, come on, man.
Come on. The 3D, come on, man. The jetpacks, the flying around.
Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely. A big surprise. I'm on the same page as you, Adam. Big surprise. But I think that like that the conversation around Star Wars has been anything that I'll at least entertain or engage in. The normal conversation around Star Wars on the internet sucks ass, but sometimes there's nice little pockets of like, this is really interesting. I think Andor and people that really engaged with Andor created a really cool side of Star Wars fandom online. And it was very interesting and very passionate. And I think that the franchise has always had room for all those kinds of stories versus something like, I think that the Harry Potter franchise, for example, is just based around Harry Potter. I don't know if the world building supports the rest of the world in a sense, right? I've used that example so many times where just like, it felt like every piece of world building was like, oh, but it just factors back into the Harry Potter story. And once it's done, there's really nothing. But back with Star Wars, like from the get, it wasn't just the Luke Skywalker story. You know, even in the holiday special, they try to do different stuff. They're trying to introduce characters like Boba Fett. They're trying to do, you know, the Endor like TV specials, those movies that had totally different characters with the Ewoks. And so I think that George Lucas and his teams have always looked at the larger stuff. And going back to like The Mandalorian seasons 1, 2, 3, and now this, I do understand what you were saying where you're like, maybe I didn't love season 3 as much as season 1. I think that season 1 had a strong mystery to propel us through that story. And I think compared to something like Andor, which is the mission statement is we are exploring stories that are in the lead up to and in the midst of human beings dealing with fascism. And how that can happen from every single angle, good, bad, you know, everything. Like the what's his name? The Kyle Stoller, is that the actor's name? Character, the dweeby guy that ends up getting killed in Andor because he's like just from every angle they explored that concept, right? The thesis, like fascism means what, and they got it. I am not embarrassed to say I don't think that the character of Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, that's not what this corner of Star Wars does.
Right.
And I think there's room for both, but I do feel like maybe as the seasons went on, maybe the concept sort of wore out its welcome a little bit because to a certain extent, you can only do so much with the character of Din Djarin. He's a great character, but he's a very like mythic, archetypal, standard sort of loner cowboy who then takes on a son. And it's like, once these two characters have declared their love for one another, once they've said we're going to be together, like, right. It's like, where else can you go further? And I'm super excited about the story in this because it seems like they are, first of all, you have to remove the helmet. It's Pedro Pascal. I love that. I love any time, the few times we've seen this happen in the show. And I also love and appreciate the physical performances that all of the physical actors who've played Din Djarin other than that, all the performance they're putting into it as well is also, it's all this collaborative thing. But I think that like you have to have his helmet taken off. You have to have him say things like, this kid is going to outlive me for centuries. I'm never going to be like, it's also emotional. It's also dad son stuff. So you have to have that along with the big action figure bombastic action. When you look at Tony Gilroy doing Andor, he's probably not treating it like a sandbox with toys because he has a different focus.
But I'm sorry.
Thriller. Exactly. Period. But even with the original Star Wars, I know for a fact that George Lucas, the creative genius that he is a man, he's a creative who can appreciate like a cool, funky alien design and a toy and a vehicle. That's part of the appeal, is that these things are toyetic. So Jon Favreau is going, well, with Mandalorian, like that's part of the appeal, is that his job is he gets to crack a story, work with people putting a story together. And then he gets to walk into offices that have concept art. And Adam, if you're not jazzed at seeing cool monsters and aliens and wrestlers and huts and gladiatorial arenas and vehicles and concept art, then you're in the wrong business making a Star Wars thing, unless you're Tony Gilroy, which is like you're doing a different thing. So for him to say playing in a sandbox, I'm not offended by that at all. I'm like, that's what you should be doing. That's that's some, not all, but some superhero movies, big fantastical worlds, even to an extent, something as highbrow and classy as Lord of the Rings. You still have, whether it's a TV show or like the new Gollum movie that they're doing or whatever, you still have teams of people that have to go into offices and figure out, we never had a visual for this. It was barely described. We have these amazing artists. Look at the design of this weapon. Look at the design of this armor. If you're not jazzed about that, stop making a Lord of the Rings thing. Like you need to be like, oh, that's so cool. Okay, we'll put it here. We'll do this. We'll do that. So you have to have that like kid level of excitement. Okay. And the path for so many of these creatives has been, especially when you're working in the sort of PG-13, big budget blockbuster, big, multimedia franchise stuff, is like these directors will fall in love with it when they're children, like we do, spend their entire career working their ass off, doing independent stuff, doing bigger and bigger movies, get to a point where everything that they sort of learned, they're almost unlearning, because it's like, we just have to get back to the kid level. We have to get back to literally the feeling of like smashing action figures together with your friends, with your siblings when you're a child, play, and figuring out what you loved and connected about those characters and those stories. Then how do you bring it forward? We're going to see the same shit with the He-Man movie this year. Like it looks like that's what Travis Knight's trying to do, is like rediscover, the same thing happened with the Lego movie. The same thing happened with the Barbie movie. A beautiful movie
to an extent.
Bumblebee, the Transformers, the good Transformers movie, same thing. Like they're trying to figure out what makes this stuff appealing at that core kid, childlike level. So seeing this also, the other comparison I wanted to make is that like, not only is Mandalorian a character who you can only do so much with, I love the character, but like truly how far can you go? I also feel the same way, frankly, about the original trilogy of Star Wars, meaning that Luke Skywalker, episode 4, 5, and 6, that what can you do with Luke? What can you do with Han? What can you do with Leia? And at the end of Return of the Jedi, they didn't do a fourth movie, because that story is sort of concluded. And it takes, and I think that that's part of where the Star Wars fandom finds the love of like all the expanded universe stuff and now all of the canon stuff. But like when you read a novel, whatever problems it has, you're almost kind of excited, an old Star Wars novel from the 90s, because you're like, well, there's only 3 movies in this. I'm getting a little taste of, it's not overextending its welcome. It's like, oh, you're taking any crumb you can get. Oh, I'm reading a Dark Horse comic book and this is so cool. It's a little insane. It's kind of crazy. The Timothy Zahn Heir to the Throne trilogy or Heir to the Empire trilogy is kind of insane, but fans loved it because it had the passion in it. It was well written, but it was also like, there's the movies in this, like this is all we're getting. Cut to The Mandalorian and Grogu. From the first season, I think it has that pulpy feel of like the best possible version of like the side character, the best possible version of, there's an old book and I think they've done new versions of it here and again, but it's like Tales from Jabba's Palace. That's what The Mandalorian feels like. It's one chapter and it's one rando alien, with some sort of little focus story, and it's all funky and weird, and then you get to the next chapter and it's a completely different thing. And The Mandalorian became this episodic thing, and I think we got pretty aware of what the formula was. Like, I need to do this thing. Well, first do this side quest. I'll do this side quest, and now I got the thing, and then it leads to the next episode, and so on. So all of this to say, I'm really excited to see this 2-hour movie where they're going to take these characters, if it is a retirement, because I don't want the characters to overstay their welcome. I want us to look back on the Mandalorian era very fondly.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are just other future plans for movies with other characters and stuff. I mean, I know we're getting the Ryan Gosling thing next year, I think, 2027. Yeah. So, what does it mean for the future of Star Wars? I don't know, but Mandalorian has done its job being that pulpy feeling and delivering that excitement, that adventure, that kid-friendly Grogu, that, that emotion. And I think it's very related to the original trilogy because those characters are very archetypal. They're very classic. They're not the most nuanced characters, Luke, Leia, and Han, It isn't until you dive into some of the other stuff and maybe some comic books and novels. And in my opinion, that's one of the reasons I love like The Last Jedi is that they would take Luke and go, okay, where would the character go? Where would the character, and what's the most interesting possible story we can get out of, 30 plus years of this character since we've seen him, or 40 years, or however long it's supposed to be. So I'm excited about that. But the Mando is also, who knows, maybe we'll get some version of Pedro Pascal returning 20 years from now, dude. I don't know. Yeah. That would be very cool. If there's like a Last Mandalorian type movie, that would be a lot of fun. But I think that this all looks great. You've probably had it on repeat. I've repeated it once or twice. And I think
it's just playing in the background.
Dude, I mean, the effects, music, everything is on point. It's great.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I think of too is, we're talking about how like the variety of Star Wars media can be very different. And
yes,
I think Andor is one of those projects that, because of what it is, it very much fits that tone and that style and that dramatic element. And I wouldn't want to see every single piece of Star Wars media that's like Andor. I think on a quality level, yes, absolutely. I want every script to be that sharp. I want the performances to be that great. I want the visuals and the look and the effects and the music. I want all that stuff to be at a 10, but I don't want that tone for everything. And I think that's part of what I have enjoyed about not everything, but a lot of what's come out of this recent decade of Star Wars is that you can have a Mandalorian, you can have a Force Awakens, you can have an Andor, you can have a Rogue One, and there are elements of those tones that make their way through everything. Like Andor has little moments of levity and humor, and that is a consistent thing that happens in most if not all of Star Wars, but then it treats action differently and drama differently. So I like having that range, because I think at the end of the day, if you create Star Wars projects that are only for the oldies, like people, just like older audiences, then how is a new fan supposed to find their way into it? And I think that was the kind of the beauty of those original 3 movies, is that they were able to cross multiple generations kind of flawlessly and seamlessly. And I think even with, something like Empire being very, very dark, it still was dark, but not so dark that it was not accessible for all audiences.
Right.
But I think now, as the saga and the story and the franchise itself has evolved over the last almost 50 years, I think it's okay to open up the doorway and open up the pathway to having multiple things. I also loved, what was the Skeleton Crew? I loved Skeleton Crew.
So great.
Because that was very much that was another great entry point for a younger audience. And I think Mandalorian is like that in a lot of ways. I think it was trying to bridge the gap between young audiences and older audiences. And I think, something we talk about a lot is, and we see this now as Marvel Cinematic Universe fans have grown up. When they were kids, they have rose-tinted glasses a little bit for Phase 1 because Phase 1 was not perfect, but it was still entertaining, and we still had a lot of fun getting to understand who the characters were. So I think Star Wars is in a little bit of that phase right now, where it's still also trying to figure out what it's going to do moving forward, because they greenlit so many projects over the last 10 years and they only made a handful of them. A little bit of that DC effect, and now Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down and Dave Filoni is coming in with a new team to figure out what the pathway forward is going to be. And it's so funny how quickly the internet turns on people, because for years, people were saying they want Dave Filoni to come in and take over and run the whole thing. And now with how people have felt about Ahsoka and the Acolyte and some of the other shows, they're like, no, you can't be Dave Filoni. Can't be Dave Filoni. We got to get someone else in. I'm like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's you just need to let someone come in, be creative, and just steer the thing in a certain direction. And I think maybe that's part of it too, is that I think Dave Filoni was very hands-on in this corner of the universe the New Republic era with Mando, Ahsoka, but I don't think Dave Filoni had too much of a hand in like the Acolyte and some of the other shows that they made. Like animation, for example, you know, like I don't know to what extent, like Bad Batch, obviously, but maybe some stuff not so much. So I don't know. I think that's kind of the thing with Star Wars, is that there was a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of people who wanted to make good Star Wars stuff. I think there was a little bit of like, we don't quite know the creative direction of where we want to take this franchise. I mean, this is the first Star Wars movie coming out in 7 years. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's only 3 years shy of the gap between Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens. That's the crazy comparison, because that felt like an eternity to me. That felt like a Revenge of the Sith coming out in 2005.
Wow.
And it felt like that 10 years to 2015's Force Awakens felt like we'll never have another Star Wars film.
That felt like
ever.
30 years.
30 years. It really did. It felt like the prequels never happened, and we've been waiting since 1983, Return of the Jedi, in a way.
Yeah.
But I'll say something else too. Like, I'm very excited about what is happening over at Lucasfilm, and I'm very happy and excited for Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, the whole team, everybody that they're sort of shuffling around and promoting and doing whatever.
Right.
I also don't know if Dave Filoni had anything to do with Andor, which ends up becoming my favorite Star Wars thing. Like, so it's like, as much as I love the Mandalorian and the Clone Wars stuff and all the stuff that that Papa Filoni has touched and has so graciously graced us with, then you have this creative coming in seemingly out of left field doing Andor, and I'm like, oh shit, that's actually incredible. And now at my age and my vibe, this is what I'm vibing with right now. So I'm hoping that the door is still open for any kinds of creative stories and creative development to happen over there. I'll also say this too, like, you know, you mentioned Skeleton Crew. We loved Skeleton Crew. It was so good. I just downloaded the soundtrack not that long ago by Mick Giacchino, which is awesome. But I also, even though the prequels are not my favorite and that era is not my favorite, I really enjoyed The Acolyte and the mystery that was setting up and where it was placing characters to go forward. And I'm like, I hope we get to see some place where we can see that story continue in some fashion, you know? And I think the past few years, I think people were expecting that of like the Solo movie. And I'm still holding out hope. Maybe that can still happen. But I think they did some of that storytelling in like comics and novels and stuff. So even if it's that, even if it's like, hey, we're never going to do season 2 of The Acolyte, but we're bringing back Leslie Headland to write or supervise like this sort of comic series or something to where fans can get that resolution, I think would be, and still leave it open, because a similar thing happened with Star Trek comics over the past couple of years. And some pals of mine wrote some amazing Star Trek comics. And then the most recent Star Trek show kind of invalidated that and made them not canon, but it's fine. It's like, just keep moving forward with the story, with the canon. You know, we'll get some mysteries explained here and maybe not here and maybe here, and we'll pick things up there. These sandboxes, which is what they are, there's so many opportunities, right? And so now we're just getting into the whole philosophy of storytelling, and we have to rein it back in. Hey, I'm excited about the Mandalorian and Grogu, Adam. It looks great. It looks really great, dude.
I agree. Yeah, and I think
looks great.
I think at the end of the day, I just want creators to sort of have free reign to do almost whatever they want. Like, obviously, if things are established, I don't think you should, you know, retcon or change, you know, like especially important events. But like, give me a James Mangold 10,000 years in the past Jedi movie. Like, that's uncharted territory. Let's go for it. Give me a sequel with Rey that takes place, you know, 20 years after Rise of Skywalker. Like,
I want the Taika Waititi comedy. I want that big bombastic neon flavor of Star Wars that we sometimes will get. I mean, I want everything, every kind of. I want more Donald Glover Lando. Want more, you know. We can't get any more Rogue One stuff because all those characters are dead. But yes, and I would also love.
They're dead, Claire. They're dead. They're all dead.
I would love the same way that I've said so many times, but the same way that the prequels got the love years later and during, I would love an animated series or something that fleshes out the sequel era and helps people really see what's special about those 3 films. And I would love to see more Poe Dameron and Finn, and because I know we're getting Rey. So yeah, dude, I there's so many opportunities. There's a lot. And also Lucasfilm, continue Indiana Jones animated. And also more Willow. I like that Willow show. Like, what happened to the Willow show? Let's do something, dude, right? I know. That was so fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe if this makes all the money in the world, they'll do all that stuff. Who knows?
I know. Well, that I think I'm really interested and curious to see is like, how does this do box office wise? Because it is the first Star Wars movie in so long, but it's also following up all these shows that are, you know, all over the place a little bit in terms of like how people feel about them. But I would hope that with a Star Wars movie, especially with things like IMAX and 3D, you know, it's going to be enticing for all audiences to show up and to support it. And you know, Pedro Pascal has a lot of love from the audience. You know, I think a lot of people just generally love Pedro Pascal and they think Grogu is adorable. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a win-win, but I guess we'll see in May. But let us know your thoughts in the comments below. How are you feeling about The Mandalorian and Grogu? Are you looking forward to it? Do you think it's going to do well? What else would you like to see the Star Wars universe conjure? Let us know. Check out everything else we're watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!
Heroes Reforged is gonna react. Heroes Reforged is gonna review. Heroes Reforged is gonna discuss. That's why we are watching